features around ad hoc. Today's subject is about securing the Jaspersoft repository. So it's more of an administrative, pushing this live from your development to QA, maybe to your live environments. So I'm joined here by by Jaspersoft customer success advocate, Raphaël Peguet. So he's going to be giving the technical presentation. The format of the show today is half of it will be a presentation with some demos about securing the repository. The other half of the show, we're going to take your questions. Now, those questions can be about the subject that Raphael presents. They can also be about anything that you have going on with your Jaspersoft installation, whether it's report development questions, ETL questions, anything at all. So with that, I'll pass it over to Raphael, who's going to get us started with the presentation.
Thank you, Ernesto. Hello, everyone. So I'm Raphaël Peguet. I work in Jaspersoft. And today I will present just simply how to best secure your Jaspersoft repository. Yes, Jasper Report Server repository. So I have split that in two parts. First, more repository management with permissions, how to test, access, and hide elements. And in the second part, more as a system administrator. So how to enable auditing or just simple security checklist. So first, I'm going to talk about permissions. So for the repository. So I imagine the first step is how would I build my repository so that I can best manage the security on it. Jasper Report Server can hold users, and we can tie those users to roles. So to best use those roles, I would advise to build the repository the way you would have one folder in the repository per role, so that you can have folders available to only one, for example, department. In my example, I have finance department, HR department, sales department. If I want to limit the access to only the sales department, I just put elements, resource, report, dashboard inside that folder, and I can very quickly on the entire folder limit the access to the sales department. Similarly, I can just very specifically limit the access to one single user. So in my folder, finance, for example, finance department, I can have a specific folder for each of my users so that they can manage their reports, create, delete reports, and that's their private little area where they can save their ad hoc reports if this is what I need to do. An important thing as well to notice is the permissions is inherited. So when I set the permissions on the parent folder, then the child folder will inherit the permissions if I have left it as inherited. So how do I know which permissions are inherited? It's with this little star beside the permissions. So in my slide I have, for example, no access with a little star for the role anonymous, but for the role demo it's read-only with no little star, so that won't be inherited. I can change the parent folder permissions, the read-only will stay. Whereas if I change the role anonymous permissions on the parent folder, this will be reflected here as well.
Just a quick question for you, Raphael. Difference between role-based permissions and user-based permissions? I don't know if you cover that off now or later.
Well, role-based permissions is really when a user is part of a role. That means uh, all users tied to a role will own this permission. I don't know if this is what you're asking, but basically I can say my role user have read, write, delete access, like on the screenshot. That means that all user with the role user will have read, write, and delete access on my folder or the elements that I'm setting the permissions on.
Okay, so then if I'm a user and I belong to role user, and then you switch over to look at my permissions by user, and let's say I have read, write, and delete, and then if you find my specific username and you deny access, which one would apply, the role or the user? Or is this something we have to try out in demo?
So this is if you have either in the role or as a user, if you have access, then you have the access to it. If you're specifically to yourself, you have no access, but that you belong to a role where you have the access, then you will see the element, even if it's set as no access in your for your user.
Okay, so that's a pretty important takeaway, I would say, from this presentation, is that the least amount of permissions applies, not the most. So keep in mind while you're designing your repository to just design it that way. Okay, I'll let you continue, Raphael. Thank you.
Thanks, Ernesto. Yeah, that's very important. There is two levels, by user and by role, and sometimes can be a bit difficult to understand which one is best. But yeah, if you have in either the user or the role, that means you have access. Well, yeah, you have access to the file. We have 6 levels of permissions. So if I want to list them from the most privileged to the least privileged access, I have administer, read, write, delete, read and delete, or read only, execute only, and no access. So most of them are easily understandable. Administer, I can see the file, I can and I can set the permissions on it. Read, write, delete, I can read in that folder or write in that folder or delete elements in that folder. And read, delete, read only is the same. Execute only can be more like new to some people. What is it? We built that permissions later, I think, building the Jasper report server. And this is specific permissions where I can set an element, a report, an input control as being able to be executed within a different element, like a report, and still not visible when I browse my repository. So a user won't be able to access. So if I take an example of an input control, this is really an input control which is used in a report. This is something that the user will need to access when he views the report, if he has access to that report. But browsing the repository doesn't need to see that input control and doesn't need to move it, copy it. So I would like to just hide it, and it's not visible in the repository, and the user won't be able to do anything with it, but he will still be able to use that input control while viewing the report. So examples about that, what would be would typically have execute only permissions, data sources, input controls, like I said, reports. So why reports? For example, if a report is is a sub-report for another one, then it may not be useful for any user to have access to it directly. It's only used as a sub-report in a different report. Similarly, for images, style templates, and we can imagine a long list, which are resources tied to a report, but not needed outside that report or outside a dashboard. For examples for read-only, I have reports, domain, dashboard. And for the read, write, delete, this is really for personal, for the end user, personal folder or maybe part of a team with a common folder. So just before this quick demo, I'm going to talk about how to make sure that now I have set up the repository and my permissions. It might be very complicated. It might be big or even not big, but it's important to, same as when I do my development in any software, this is important to test it. And well, I would like to test, for example, that my user can see what they need to see. This is important. This is what I want to make available to my users. So I need to make sure that they can see it. But most importantly, I would say, I would like to make sure that no one can see more than what they should do. I don't want people in the sales department to have access to HR reports. So to test that, there is a very cool feature in Jasper Report Server, which is the login as, and I will show you that in just a minute with the demo. So as an administrator on my server, I can just browse my user and log as one of the user, and then I will be able to see exactly what he sees, browse to his repository, view the folder, see that maybe I have given access to him for a report, but then this report doesn't execute because I didn't give access or execute only access on the database that this report is using. So there are many situations like this where it's important to make sure that to test it. Other ways to test, just log out and log in again if you have the password, or test from a different browser or different machine. So if there is no questions, I can go to this a quick demo. So this is Jasper Report Server. I kept the same look, the same theme as the one which you can download from jaspersoft.com. So and this is the Jasper Report Server 5.0. So our latest version, which was released just a month ago. I'm going to log in as Jasper admin first, and I will go to my repository. And I can see a public folder and my own Tech Talk organizations with the hierarchy I've built. So like I said, I have split between different departments and more resources. So all my database connections will be in one folder, domains will be in one folder. So I can manage them all best. If I go to the sales department folder, you can see that I have different folder for each user. So Jane and Neil belong to the sales department, so I have created a folder for them. And if I go to the permission of that folder, so I right-click and go to the permissions, I can see that no role has any access on it. So this is only user-based role, so I can switch view to user. I can see that for Jane, she has all accesses, read, write, and delete. She cannot administer, but she can read, write, delete in that folder. That means when she creates an ad hoc report, and she needs to save it, she will be able to save it in that folder. And as an administrator, I want to make sure that everything she's saving is in that folder so that my user don't save reports anywhere and then it becomes unmanageable. So for Neil is the same. For the common folder, this is set as a team or department level, so all my cells can read, write, and delete. So if my users need to, my sales users need to share a report, then they can have it in the common folder, and they can have it, write it, delete it from there. And as to have access to those folders, I need to give read-only access to the team. So now what happens if I log as Jane? So I will use the login as feature. I will go to my users, manage users. Because I am Jasper admin, I can view the users. And I will select Jane, and just at the bottom right, I have login as user. So I'm logging in, and now you can see at the top right that I'm still Jasper admin, but I view the server as Jane. So I have the same view as what she would see when she logs in. I will go to her repository, and this is very limited. I don't see the database connections anymore. I don't see the other departments anymore, input controls. I can see the domain. I made the domain available to her so that she can build the report and based on that domain, and she can view her own folder and the common one, and with her reports. So just to display quickly with when she builds a report, ad hoc report, she would just select the data from the domain that I made available to her, and just to show that she can save only in one place, I will just drag one field and save the view and the report. And I can browse, and if I want to save it in sales department, for example, I don't have access to the sales department. I cannot write to there because Jane doesn't have write access in sales department. But if I go to my own folder, I can save both the view and the report, and this is successfully saved. So this is the demo I had. Any question?
Yeah, I'll stop you just for a second. So that is interesting there, what you showed us. It's not just, I'd say, security, what you're showing. It's also proper layout. So as you can see, Raphaël, with about 5 or 6 clicks, was able to create an ad hoc report and then save it into the repository. So if you don't take the actions that he took, which is to give Jane a folder where only Jane can save, the repository, as Raphaël said, would get overrun with all kinds of views and reports. It's basically like littering. So if you allow the users to only litter in their own folders, they can create subfolders if they like, but otherwise the repository would become a mess. Nobody will find anything. That you might as well just go back to emailing an Excel spreadsheet, I'd say, if you let them just write anywhere. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Raphaël, was if you could talk a little bit about the public folder. So I noticed in your repository you have a public folder. Can you talk about what that means for a single organization instance of Jaspersoft and a multi-tenant one?
Yeah, I did have, and I can go back to it. I did mention it without really explaining what it is. I'm using the multi-tenant multi-organization feature in Jasper Report Server. So I'm logged in as Jasper admin, who is a user in my organization TechTalk. But if I log out and log in, well, I've logged out as Jane, now I can log out as Jasper admin. I can log in as super user, and super user is administrator, but on higher than each organization. It doesn't belong to any organization, so I can see all the organizations. And now in my repository, I can see the entire hierarchy from root. I'm not limited to my own organization. So I won't go too much into the details, but when I have many organizations, there is always, and I can disable that, but I have a public folder, which is public for all organizations. So my users in each of organizations have very closed world. They can only see what is in this organization. They will not be able to access reports, elements from a different organization. This is very, very strict. So if you're in an environment where you need people from one organization and people from a different organization to share or to share reports or dashboards, then there is a public folder where they can do that and go over this limitation to not being able to see anything from a different organization. This is really a strong security feature. If I have a report in one organization, I know that a different organization won't be able to access it. This is very, very strict. No one, even the super user, can change that. There is no permission saying, oh, allow a different organization. No, this will never be possible. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Thank you very much. So maybe in the mode that you were showing us, maybe the public folder would just be completely hidden for a user like Jane, and I think it was when you logged in as Jane. And another thing, maybe I'll add just a quick tip. If you're using Jasper Report Server in a single organization mode, it's generally bad practice to use super user at all. I'd say use a organization-specific administrator when you're developing reports versus a super user. You'll run into some problems like repository paths and things like that. So okay, before we actually get going, we actually had a poll question we wanted to ask. It's just a question to understand the technical level at which we should have these tech talks. So we're actually going to do this once a week. We're actually broadcasting from Dublin, Ireland today, so it's 10 a.m. here in Dublin. Next week we'll be broadcasting from San Francisco, so it'll be 6 p.m. for the European time zones. But you'll be able to actually pick up the show either live or you can pick it up on our YouTube channel, which we'll share later. So here's the poll. What's your level of knowledge on Jaspersoft? Are you an absolute beginner? Do you have intermediate? Or are you a Jaspersoft Jedi Master? So we'll give you guys just about a minute to answer this question. Okay, so it looks like most have voted. Thank you very much. So we'll share the results in just a few minutes. We'll let Raphaël continue on with his presentation. Back to you, Raphaël.
All right. So this was about managing my repository, how to build, best practice to build the repository and setting the permissions. I want to speak more in detail about hiding elements. So this is all about hiding and making sure that people don't see what they shouldn't see and see what they need to see. So we have seen that execute only permission can be set so that people can execute an input control report in the dashboard, but not view it. But there are limitations to that. For example, if I have a dashboard with a drill through to a report. So I will display that in a minute. If I have a report in my dashboard which contains links to a different report, then I want my user obviously to be able to click on those links and view the report. But if I need, and for example, if that report is not viewable outside the repository, because outside the dashboard, for example, when I click on my link, I pass a parameter to my report, and I see only the results, the report for that particular use for that particular parameter. If I have 1,000 options for this parameter, when executing the report alone without passing any parameter, then might not be very user-friendly. So just for convenience, I may want to just hide that report without limited and have it execute only. And if I set execute only to a report, that report will be able to be viewed inside another report as a sub-report, but not as a drill through, or a report in the dashboard, but not as a drill through from the dashboard. So that's when you may need to use a little trick with some JavaScript. So we have this article on the community, Jaspersoft community website, hide search results, where it's very simply in a couple of steps you can set a keyword, which will be scanned in the title or in the description of reports or elements. And if this is present, this won't appear in the repository or in the search result. So this will hide just as a front end. So just so without talking more, I can show that in a demo. I'm going back to my server, and I will log in as so I will change the organization. I will go to the organization one. I have no, and log in as Jasper admin. So I'm using a sample dashboard, the SuperMart dashboard. So that's why I'm coming to my original organization, the one which is installed by default in a Jasper report server. And I'm going to execute that dashboard that I have mentioned, where I can drill through a different report. So I have my dashboard, sample dashboard from Jasper report server, and in my top 5 customer, I may be interested to see the client overview of Mary Francis Benninger. So I click on it, and it opens my report for this particular client. Now I can change that and pick a different client, but this is a very long list and displaying only IDs, and I may want to hide that. So I've left that visible just for this example. I will go through the steps to hide this option and hide that report so that it's not available outside the dashboard. So I will look for my report. So that's this one. And that will be the same report, but I don't pass any parameter, so I'm asking the user. So this report really, if you don't understand the ideas or if you don't like this very long list, even if I was displaying names, this is not very convenient to use, so it's too long of a list. So that's the reason why I would like to hide this report. But if I set it as execute only, then I won't be able to drill through it. So I will use the trick with Jasper with some JavaScript. So first, I will go to the input control to make the input control invisible, so that I don't even have a choice to change the input control, change the parameter. So when I go into the input control, which is used in my report, so I'm using this, it's actually customer ID. I'm using this customer invisible, so it's not even possible for the end user to change. So when I will see Mary, the report for Mary, then I will not be able to change that that parameter and see a different client, because it is a too long list, and to me that doesn't make sense that people can do that. So now I have done that, I will go to my report, and well, I can show you quickly that I don't have the option button anymore. So now it's even less important for me to leave that available to my end users if they don't pass a parameter. So I will go in the permission. No, I will go in the properties and set a keyword. So the keyword will be $hidden $, submit. And at the same time, I have opened the repository.search.main.javascript. Sorry, and I have set, so this is the little portion of code that you need to add, and this is where you set the keyword. So this is all explained in the community wiki article, and I'm setting the $hidden $, as a key that I'm using to hide the element. So I just need to save it, no need to restart, and I go back to my server, and if I search for the same report, so I had 2, now I search, and only 1 is displayed. And I can quickly go back and, for example, remove a D.
Okay, so Alan is going to share the link to the article now in the chat box in case you're interested in looking at it. So this is actually a really powerful tip. We do have execute-only permissions, but that's only to hide reports that are in a dashboard, and I think they still would show up in a search. This is just a little trick. Again, it's not for security because the report is essentially still there. It's for convenience of end users, like Raphaël says. It's if your users are searching around the repository, they're getting to reports that are only meant for a drill down. You know, this is more for aesthetics and ease of use. So it's a nice little trick, and there should be a link now in the chat box to the article. There are a couple of questions from the audience here. So they're actually from your earlier demo. So one of them is, can the login ask functionality be used when the server is configured to use an LDAP authentication provider? he adds another note in a multi-tenancy environment.
That's a good question. I wouldn't be able to answer for sure. I would say yes. This is possible. I'd rather test it before, unless Ernesto, you know.
Well, so we use LDAP internally, and you showed me when you accidentally. This is actually a funny side story. We use at Jaspersoft. We use Jaspersoft a lot internally, and Raphaël was developing some reports for his department, and we also use LDAP, and he was accidentally given admin rights. And so you were showing me that you can use the login as feature until it was disabled for you. So don't be that bad admin that gives somebody admin rights when they shouldn't get them. But as far as multi-tenancy goes, LDAP doesn't support the concept of tenant, so you must have built something. You must have built something else on top of that. So if you could just try it out, if it doesn't work, then it's maybe because of the multi-tenancy. Oh, actually, somebody from the audience says yes, it is possible with multi-tenancy as well. Thanks. And then the other question comes, can I export and import metadata for a specific organization along with its own users into Jaspersoft? Now, unfortunately, using the import-export utilities for one specific organization does not work in Jaspersoft. You'll get a message saying exporting a single organization is not supported. I do actually have an internal note that I'm looking at here. It is it's targeted for release in codename Emerald 2, which may be 5.02. So this you're looking at maybe the summer of 2013 before you're going to get that feature in the product, and that is not necessarily guaranteed. Just reading off what it says in an internal report. That's the questions that we have now. We'll go back to Raphaël now.
Okay. So that was permissions and hiding. As a second part now, I will go to enabling auditing and security checklist. So I will start by enabling auditing. So as an administrator on my server, I would like to know what is happening when people logs, how many people are logging, and when. I may need to know report usage, performance. So, Jaspersoft is coming with this very nice feature, auditing, where there are already pre-built reports ready for you, and you just pick parameters, and you see the you see the report and performance or login access, etc. So to enable that, there is application context audit. So this is inside your webinf folder in your server, where you can scroll down and find generic the generic bin updater for the property definition. So you will need to set the audit domain audit event value to true, as displayed on the screen, and after restart of the server, then you will have access to those reports. So I will actually display demo that now. So I can stay in the organization 1, and I go to my repository, and because I have auditing enabled, I can go to the public folder and find my auditing report. So I will go to the report and just pick the first one. And I will look for login and logout. If I see that someone logs in during the night and no one is supposed to access Jasper server during the night, that would be interesting. So I need to know that. And any kind of resource type, so I just select empty. And I will pick that between, just for the last month, from 1st of November until now. So I run my report, and I can see every single login and logout on my server through a UI, to the UI or through a web service. So a web service would be, in this case, when I used iReport. iReport is using a web service to access the Jasper report server. So I can manage that and monitor that access very in detail. And so the audit report, you can see that there are many other reports for performance, user activity reports, etc. So this is the place, once you have enabled the auditing in your application context audit file, then you can view and execute those reports. So before I go to the security checklist, is there any comments, questions?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. First, this is an enterprise-only feature, so if you don't have the audit folder or you can't find those beans to enable in the admin guide, yeah, it is restricted by license. The next thing that I'll say is that when you enable auditing, you're not limited to just the reports here. You actually get, it'll write the contents into a database. So I actually had a user connect this into Splunk, and they wanted to monitor that with Splunk. We did actually add some monitoring and some diagnostic features in 5.0 that are across all what would you call them, across all editions. So the professional, even the community edition, will have that stuff in it. And the last thing I wanted to say is, Raphaël, if you could open in the audit report, this is something I actually discovered yesterday. By default, the audit report shows, if you could just select all options, or maybe the run report and then all the resource types. I just wanted to show one quick thing there. So when he executes this report, we should see one of the types is SQL query. So I was scratching my head yesterday. If you scroll over to the right, you might notice there's more of the report. Scroll to the yeah. So that was empty, and I was scratching my head over why that might be empty. Note that in the default audit report, we hide the prop value. I think it's long, and so you can actually add it in through ad hoc, and then you actually get to see the SQL query. So I was working with a customer who wanted to use auditing data to make internal investigations in case there's ever a data leak, that kind of thing. This could be used, in that manner, in that you could actually see the SQL query, you can see the parameters that were chosen, what the engine substituted them in as. Not the most fun thing to do, but it is what auditing is there for. So if you have an enterprise license, don't forget to enable it. And we'll, I think that was the only question we had. We do have a couple more questions. does the audit report also track sub-report usage or just the main JRXML files of a report? I don't know that one off the top of my head. It's a good question, so we'll take it down and give it a test, unless you have a report that has a sub-report in it, Raphaël, and then no. Okay. And another one was, can you show us which file to enable auditing again? So if you have that file open, Raphaël, you can show it.
Yeah, so maybe it's in, okay, I will find it. So that will be Jasper Report Server Pro, Webins, Application Context, Audit. So I can make this harder. This is my Jasper server Apache Tomcat. I've just kept the default bundled server and bundled database. So this is the path I have, and I can find application context audit here. And if I scroll down, so I may do. Okay, that's this one here. So this value was set to false, and now I've set it to true. And saving the file, restarting the server, and made those reports available.
Okay, one thing about that is there's also an audit archive, and in this same file you'll configure that audit archive. What'll happen is that I think it'll start to delete. I've actually never used that feature. You can read about it in the admin guide, but do be aware that I think by default it's going to start truncating the log unless you tell it otherwise. And there was one more question. Not sure. Maybe we can just. We actually have a small audience here in our Dublin office. A few of our consultants and employees are in the room with us. It feels like a real show. So what is the best strategy to set up or keep the repository? Means, should we store it in a warehouse instance, or do we keep it in the database instance? We're having trouble interpreting the question, so if maybe you could resubmit it in a different way. We're sort of scratching our heads about that one, what you might mean. So we'll continue on, Raphaël, if you have something else for us.
Yeah. So just I just thought it would be helpful. So let me go back to the slide. Just as a last slide, to do a quick checklist about other things I won't be able to demo, but would be important to consider while monitoring the security on my server. So we have a capability to enable SSL, so encrypt and use HTTPS to use Jasper Report Server to add more security. When you create, for example, new organization, be aware that Jasper admin user will be created by default, and the password is Jasper admin as well. So same as when you install a new Jasper Report server, there is a Jasper admin username and password created by default. So you may want to disable that user or change the password if this is accessible for like as a production box. Use JNDI over JDBC connection. So by exporting the JDBC or by storing the JDBC connection into a JNDI file, then you would manage better connection to which database, and that will also ease the import-export. If you're exporting your repository to a different server, then the JNDI will be like specific file for it can be different in the two servers, whereas if it's a JDBC, it will be exported with the repository and might not be the same connection in different folder server. And security framework, this is another feature. All of those can be found and described in the admin guide, Jaspersoft admin guide for the Jasper Report server. Security framework is about CSRF. So this when the user is trying to copy, someone would try to copy the session and view your data as if it was you. We have cross-site protection now since 4.0 or 4.5, and so you can set that on or off as well. By default is set to on, so that will avoid this session stealing practice.
I'll add a quick note to that there. So that also covers off SQL injection attacks and input validation. So if you get a strange error saying, you know, something, contact your administrator, and I think by default the error is 5321, error code 5321. You've triggered the security framework. So there's certain forms that we've disabled, you know, like the @ symbol, but sometimes you might need to do an @ symbol. So Raphaël, do you have that wiki article from the community? I don't know if you'd be able to access that and put up the link or not. For those of you out there, if you haven't discovered the new Jaspersoft wiki, it's pretty brilliant. It's got loads of information. This actually was written by one of the developers who worked on this on the security changes. There's even a recommendation section. He recommends what you would want to set for default settings, etc. It also talks about some frequently sort of asked questions about it. So coming back to the questions, so the question that we had earlier that we had trouble interpreting, again, one of our audience members has been able to figure out what the gentleman meant. So the best strategy to set up or keep the repository, should we store it in a warehouse instance or keep it in the database instance? So that question was interpreted as the repository schema should be in a separate database schema instance. Don't mix it with the data you want to report on. So you have your Jasper server database. Don't add data to that. It is a recipe for disaster. I would agree with that. So thank you for both. Let's see, the next question that we had from the audience. Can you give me more info about seeing the SQL query in the audit report? So Raphaël, if you can go back into the audit report, I'll show you what you mean by adding the other property. So go to the repository. This is actually an ad hoc style report. So if you can find its view, it's going to be the second one there that you have on your screen, the ad hoc audit. Yeah. So go ahead, and once it's loading, there's another field called prop long value. So add it, just append it to the end of the report. Okay, great. and then you can go ahead and just save that ad hoc view as. I don't want you to overwrite the one you have there. So yeah, you'll have to do save as, and then you have to create a report separately. Or maybe, you know what, you can skip over that and just scroll over to the right, and maybe you already see the property. Maybe you can go ahead and choose property type and add that as a filter, and that way we only see the SQL queries. You want to just, okay. So this is a fairly long list because it's got every single thing that we sort of monitor that's in the log at the moment. So I'm just going to filter to only the SQL query. And then, okay, so property long value, let me just drop it at the end so it's easier to understand. Yeah, so see how property value is blank. And I can see the reason why they didn't add it, because it can get quite long. But here we see the, well, it's actually funny because it's showing us the SQL query that we're running at the very moment. Now, Jaspersoft 5, if you just want to see the SQL query that the ad hoc report is making, like for testing your report, if you log in as super user, you can actually enable this little button that says View SQL Query. Now, I don't necessarily recommend enabling that for everybody. Just enable it while you're hacking around on your ad hoc reports and trying to see which SQL queries they generate. Okay, another interesting question. This one's a question about customization. How can we achieve conditional-based rendering based on selected locale? Meaning, based on a selected locale, show or hide repository folders or menu links. So it's probably several questions built into that one. I'd say if you want to hide menu links, things like that, it'd be in the JSP. And then showing or hiding particular repository folders, you might want to do, if you just want to do a quick customization, you might want to use the same technique that Raphaël used to hide. Well, he added something to the description, but I think you could probably just get the current user's locale as a variable and then just use that as a test to hide items. Another one here, can you mention SQL validation? So that's SQL validation, I believe, in the security context. So if you have that wiki article open again, or if you have the however you want to take the question, whether you look at it here. So one of the top level links there was query validation, query security. I don't want to read off the article, but Raphaël, I don't know if you had any comment or if you just want to leave it at that. You can just sort of read specifically here.
Yeah, no, we do this security on SQL based on regular expression, so that it's just allowing a select, so no insert, no delete in the database. This is now prevented. The side effect to it, if you turn this feature on, is that you that will not let the developer add some comments in the query. So so to allow comments, you will need to update this regular expression. But yeah, any drop, insert, update, it will not be allowed. So that adds a lot of security you make sure that people only access the data instead of modifying them. So that's our query security.
Okay, thanks, Raphael. So we are running low on time, but I'm trying to rush through a couple more questions there. Okay, do JDBC resource reference still need to be configured in the web.xml file of the report server? Yeah, so you're talking about JNDI. Yes, they do. They are configured there in the web.xml file. I'm not sure if that's something that's coming in a new version, but that is something that you typically handle at the application server layer. So I know Glassfish, you actually configure JNDI right in the UI. Tomcat is just a matter of editing an XML file. So I don't think, and I might be wrong, I don't think we would ever allow or be able to add JNDI right from the UI. Oh, somebody somebody corrected me on the error code. The error code that you get when you trigger the security is 6632. I think that's what this comment was referring to. Another one is the View SQL button that I mentioned. Is it also available for non-ad hoc reports? The answer to that is no, but if you log in as super user and you go to the log settings, you can actually enable logging of SQL queries. That's fairly straightforward, and then yeah, your user won't be able to click on a button and see the SQL queries, but you will be able to get them in the log. Another question, is there any session or context variable that is storing the user locale so we can add conditional-based rendering? I'll look into that and email you separately. We might actually do a newsletter with some of these questions if we get enough of them. Okay. Somebody else says, although being logged in as super user in the ad hoc view, my button view SQL query is disabled. Okay, great. So Raphael's actually going to show that as well. So this goes back to the question about the SQL query executor. So it'd be that very first bean there, SQL query executor. I'd set that to debug, and then there's one more, which is I don't remember if that's the only one that you need to do, or if there's another possibility. I'd say input control value queries is an interesting one as well. And I think maybe once you set those, you should be able to see them in the log. The other question was about I can't see the view SQL query. So if you go to ad hoc settings, Raphael, the next thing down, and see that very first item there, enable view query in ad hoc editor. Now, for those of you that don't know Jaspersoft 5, I just want to point out the import and export buttons right in the UI. So, of course, we still have the JS import and JS export utilities. This is very, very cool. You can just do it. You can import and export right in the UI. You can actually, as super user, just find a folder you want to export, right-click, and export a particular folder. That was something I got pretty excited about. One last thing before we close off the show is I wanted to talk about two more things. We do have another poll, so if you want to get that ready, the poll is going to be asking how you want to consume these shows. So I love this interactive format that we have, but I also want to make sure that, like the ones that we're doing in America, how you would want to reach them. The next thing is I just wanted to read off the next shows. So next week, December 11th, The Ins and Outs of Jaspersoft Domain by Steve Park. Steve Park is an absolute expert on this subject. He's actually going to show you how to add your own Groovy functions. It is a fairly complex show that he's got going. I learned a lot from it when I saw his session at Jasper World. So tune in for that. Now again, that'll be at 6 p.m. GMT or 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight time in California. And then we have December 18th, Jasper Reports Tips and Tricks. I have a very special guest that day. Not that you're not special, Raphael, you're very special, but we have Theodore Danshu. He's the founder of Jasper Reports, so that'll be the next European show. So with that, I think we'll close down the poll. Thank you all very much for attending. Thank you all very much for the questions, and stay tuned for more Tech Talks. Thank you.